Speaking of people who make you laugh, earlier this year, number 2 son Rory and I attended one of the many amazing Melbourne International Comedy Festival festival events at the Comics Lounge in Melbourne, North Melbourne actually. We were not nearly well enough prepared to have our sides split and most definitely our pants wet from the night's headliner, Ashley Fils-Aime. I think that is how you pronounce it, hopefully. Supporting a mystery lineup he was of some of the best festival comedians, Ashley did not fail to keep the laughter at level 11 throughout the entire evening. Looking a little closer at Ashley's trajectory, though, a Haiti-born comedy success raised in Miami, Florida, and performing on stage since the age of 18, I started scratching the surface of a story that's simply gagging to be told. My radar on racial ethical disparities in men's health was also activated during Ashley's performance through his tongue-in-cheek references to personal experience of being a black male. Ashley very generously agreed to join me live on radio today at 3WBC, and here he is. Ashley Fils-Aime.
Hey, how are you?
Is that how you say it?
Fils-Aime is pretty. That's pretty good. That's actually how it is.
Because I can't speak any other language than Australian.
That's all right.
Unfortunately. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, as usual, Ashley, usually I've already met my guests on the show and know a lot more about them than I know about you.
Right.
So this is our very first time meeting, although I have seen you on stage and we did share a couple of words.
Yes.
Because you were talking about a legend of especially Melbourne and Collingwood Football Club, Nathan Buckley. And you could not remember his name. You said you met this guy, he's kind of famous, and you had a photo of him on Instagram. And you were inviting people to join your Instagram. And I put up my hand and said, that's Nathan Buckley. Yeah. And that's the full extent of our conversation.
Buckley, yeah. You know what's crazy? I saw him the following week on a cruise ship. Maybe 2 days later, because he was on I was doing the Virgin Cruise Lines, and Collingwood was on there doing some kind of meeting before the ship sailed, and I just saw him walk past me. I'm like, hey, and he remembered me immediately, and we took another picture and we talked, and that was so crazy. 'Cause I just saw him 2 days before, and then the following, the day before that, another Collingwood supporter, Collingwood player, ex-player, was at the show, and I took a picture with him as well. So it was really a Collingwood week. And look at this cup. This cup is actually Collingwood supporters. Are you a Collingwood supporter?
Well, vicariously through my daughter Rose, yes.
Okay.
But traditionally a Bombers fan. But we do love Nathan Buckley in our family. He's probably one of the kindest people in the world.
He is. Yeah. Such a nice guy. Such a great giving of his time. He remembered me when I saw him because it was just like day before or 2 days before, and my wife was there. She was pretty impressed. I was like, I know people. Yeah. But but I'm still not gonna be a Collingwood supporter though.
Yeah.
I represent the D's, Melbourne Demons. That's who I
okay. For. And we're going to get into a bit of how you sort of landed here in Australia later on in the show. But going back to that night, Rory and I aren't typical comedy show goers. We love comedy because we think we're pretty funny ourselves, and my family is hilarious. Yeah. But noting that it was a different kind of a show because it was a lineup, I think, of 10 mystery comedians that were going to be performing throughout the festival. Yeah. And you were the headliner, is that right? Is that what we called? Or the MC? Or
depends on what position it was. Was I back and forth, or was it the last act?
No, you came on first, and you were introducing each act.
Yeah, I was the MC. I MC that night. It just depends on what position they have me do. Sometimes I close and I headline, and sometimes I MC. Sometimes I'm in the middle. It just depends on what they have available or what they need me for. Because that's my home club, which I call home court advantage. Like I know the whole layout of the stage. I know exactly what I look like on what they're seeing as well. Like I've been there for years, and every comic has a home club, so I'm very comfortable there because I understand. I feel like they're in my house when people come in. So it's like, it's just a very, I'm in a controlled state. Like I know exactly what's going on the whole time. Like if someone's way in the back and they're staring, I know exactly what they're seeing. When I walk to the left or the right of the stage, I know exactly what's going on over here. I know I'm throwing my energy certain places. You just understand, vibrations and frequencies. And so once you understand that you play to that, I could tell when the audience is tired. Or I can tell like when they need or when they just want more out of you. Sometimes like they want to laugh harder, they just it's just so many things that's going on when you're performing, that as you're saying your jokes, there's like a million things going on in your mind, and you're just constantly analyzing your surroundings so you can know how to connect to the audience better.
I love that perspective because I've not heard that before, in that you're not just reading the room, but you're picking up a whole range of other senses as well.
Absolutely.
And adapting all the way.
Yep.
Many would assume that comedians have a script and they stick to it and they play that over and over and over again until they write new material and rinse and repeat.
Yeah, we do that. It's just that if you're going on, you're just doing a spot and you're just doing like, let's say 5 to 7 minutes, you don't have time to mess around. So you just do your script. But when you're the MC, you're in control of the whole show. Like, because you can bring on a comic after you that doesn't do so well. Now the audience has turned a certain sour way, so you have to bring him back. Or if the comic you bring on does it extremely well, you just keep the show going. So you have to know it. The MC I don't really enjoy emceeing that much because of the responsibility that's on you. You're in charge of the whole environment throughout the whole night.
Well, you're almost protecting the other comedians, aren't you?
Yeah.
In a way of keeping them safe. Like I'm keeping you safe on air today. That's my job.
Yeah.
To hold you in space.
Yeah.
And I noticed that night that you held them so beautifully. And
thanks.
I was not prepared because it's sort of like going to see your favourite band and there's a support act to begin with. Sort of go, I'll just go to the toilet then. But we were just like Rory, can't even remember my own son's name, but we were literally on the floor, did not want you to get off the stage. and every time you came back to insert yourself in between 10 different comedians, you did not lose any energy at all.
Yeah, it like as I was saying before, everything is just frequency and vibrations, and that's your job as an MC.
It was that because of Rory and I in the audience.
Yeah,
we were giving off like this like really positive vibe.
You can feel that. You can feel. You just understand. It's hard to explain because you just know. When you just know exactly what to do. Like this August would be 28 years I've been performing stand-up. I started when I was 18, so I'm like 45 going on 46.
That's good maths, Ashley, as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not pretty good at math, but I understand my years in this business. And you just understand the position. If I was headlining and the crowd was tired, then and they could be tired because they're laughing so long, or they're tired because they're just tired for whatever reason, then I would approach it differently. It just depends on the position, on the spot that I'm in, and how the audience is. Like I do open mics where there's like maybe 10 people in the audience, if that, and they're just like, it's more intimate. So I perform, my energy is different. Like you got to match the frequency that the room has. Some jokes won't work the way it usually does because the room is not capable. The potential is not there for that. Yeah. So you try different things. You just have to be very quick, and you have to adjust. You can't come in there with a plan and stick to the plan. You have to be willing to let go of the plan because the atmosphere dictates what you're gonna do. So,
that's right. You're performing for them, not for yourself.
Yeah, you're performing for yourself through them. So it's a give and take, if that's the proper term. So.
Well, do you know, I had an experience yesterday, and I did say to you before you came on the show, this will be all about you and not about me, but always has a way of coming back to me. Fine. But I was thinking about the whole Arj Barker situation that happened over the comedy festival, and I had thoughts about that. But then yesterday I was speaking at an event, and I was invited as the guest speaker. Right. And I'm fine, and I'm kind of what you described. I adjust myself to the audience. You come and you read the room and you know how to position yourself. Yep. I had been invited to talk about men's health and mental health at this event. And I walked in and all the participants had an easel set up. So they were having a painting class whilst I was going to be speaking at the same time. This is how they'd arranged this event, to be having this really kind of intense activity while I'm speaking. Half the room was positioned with their back to the stage area.
That's horrible.
And it was, and I'm fine with that. I go, okay, I need to adjust myself around that. And it was at a football event, so people coming in and out the whole time, door banging. Yeah. And because it was a mental health event, I thought if that wasn't me and that was somebody else who was telling their own lived experience story, that could have just been so horrendous. Yeah,
the people who were in charge of that didn't understand what they were doing.
Not at all. Yes. It was in retrospect, it was just really quite dangerous if I had been another person presenting.
So yeah, because it sounds like some people they need that release, and they need the attention to have that release let out the way it should be. But they yeah, that would be crazy. And for a comedy show, that would have been horrible.
Well, the Arj Barker thing, I know everyone's got their own sort of position on that, but for those who don't know that story, he was performing at an event, and there was a person in the audience with a very young baby who was being disruptive, and I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly how he asked them to leave, but there was a big uproar, a lot of disinformation, misinformation through the media that he threw a breastfeeding woman out of the audience. Right. So, of course, in the the constant narrative around women's issues and men's issues, this became a really big thing. And I think all he was doing was saying, hey, I have a craft here and an art that I need to perform for the audience. Right. And perhaps this isn't a setting for a newborn baby. Right. I don't know.
I think, well, I feel like when you're being interrupted, no matter what the interruption is, you want the interruption to stop, because jokes is timing, and every word has to be heard in order for it to work. And you're up there, you're by yourself, and from what I understand, there was several times this baby was interrupting him, and he asked her to leave because the situation was getting out of control. I wasn't there, but given understanding what it's like to be interrupted, I can understand where he's coming from, But now some people have turned it into, how could you throw out a breastfeeding woman, and you can't even see. He said he couldn't see, and I get that. You can't see past the front row, whatever it is. And regardless of the situation, he needed to continue the show, because that could throw the whole thing off. People would pay to see the show. If you get thrown off, then it's a bad show. Then you get a bad review. There's a lot at stake when you're performing, and you need that proper respect on the stage. I've heard people try turning it into a thing where he's, I guess, misogyny or woman bashing. They just turned it into something that it wasn't. And there's a time and a place for everything, and that wasn't a time and a place to be trying to turn it into like some kind of woman's issue. In my opinion, I felt like it was way too it was thrown out of perspective, because he's not. I know Arch. He's a great guy, and all the comics we got behind him on that one, because we understand what it's like. A lot of female comics as well. But I had a friend who just said that wasn't the case, and they turned into this woman against men thing, and it's just look, it
was totally inappropriate, and I liked that he sort of stood in his own shoes and respectfully declined to take that kind of responsibility.
Yes, it's not the time and the place. Why would you bring a newborn to? And then the lady was being interviewed on the project or whatever, and had the baby.
Because they love men, don't they?
Yeah, well, you know how that goes. And then the baby was interrupting during their interview as well. So it's just like,
how ironic.
Well, then what is that a woman's issue again? Yeah. It's like there's a time and a place. It just sucks that everything that I think we go through as men, we're not allowed to show any type of weakness, which is just being called human. This is why men turn so rough, because we're told that if we cry or if we show any type of feelings that we're weak, so then we bottle it up inside, and then we turn into monsters because we're not allowed to vent in any way. And then and then at the same time, if you do vent, then you're too rough. There's so much expectations of us that it confuses us. And I feel like if we just didn't care about other people's opinions, then we could just be more normalized, be more compassionate, or whatever it is.
It's a really good point, and something that I'm very passionate about. That in particular, I'm pretty certain that men aren't born as baby boys, not having the ability to show emotion. Yeah. And speak. It's how they're raised, and I think we've got to get a lot closer to looking at how we're raising boys in the world. Yeah.
And I think, but also, we have a generation of parents who don't know how to discipline their own children. That's a problem as well.
Are they allowed to?
Watching the news, there's these kids who are doing these rating things on these girls, like they're rating girls from 1 to 10, and one of them, the category was unrapeable, and that's crazy. That was one of the categories that they had, and that's got to be dealt with. There's no excuse for that. There's also no excuse for.
But where did that come from? Where does that come from? It comes from some kind of how that person's raised to even think that that's an okay thing to do.
Yeah, well, things are out of control now. There's no parents don't have any control over what their kids see on social media. I think what's going on was like we're living in an age of information, and also in that information there's also bad information that people consume, and they think that's the way it's supposed to be. Life is a big popularity contest. I always think that no matter what happens, you never get out of high school. You never have that high school mentality. You in high school, there's the cool kids, and there's the kids who are not so cool, and then that's how it works. And you get out of high school, and that's what when you work in an environment. Let's say you work in a building that's full of accountants. There's the cool ones, and then there's the ones that even in comedy, there's always that high school mentality. And the only way to survive that is to be a loner and not to care and have your own mind.
Yep.
That's pretty much how it works. And then when you really understand that life is a game, none of this is real, then you're free.
Is that how you see it?
I just had that revelation maybe 2-3 weeks ago. I was sitting down and I go, man, none of this is real. None of this is real. What's going on right now isn't real because we're all going to die one day. So what's the point of trying to do something that doesn't really matter? As long as you don't hurt anybody, then you're fine. Like, none of this is real. None of this matters. Nothing we do on earth matters. Not even, I don't even understand the whole thing about like, what about your legacy? Like, I'm not going to be here to experience what happens within my legacy. As long as I don't hurt anybody, then I'm fine. None of this is real. Nothing really matters. We're here to have experiences in life. That's what our souls are craving, certain experiences. And that's all it is. We're all to experience things. But it doesn't matter. It's not real.
So that's like everything matters to the appetite of the soul,
exactly.
to collect.
Exactly.
And, just, looking at the passing of my auntie the other night and, being such an amazing, colourful woman at the age of 89, she was such a pioneer in her generation of really pushing forward, and the footprints that she left for me to step into, coming from a family who typically is not an educated, thoughtful group of people, to have that role model. And I hope to leave footprints behind for me, even in my work in men's health. I know that the changes that I would love to see will not happen in my lifetime, but there will be, I'll leave enough behind for somebody else to pick up.
Yeah, I get that. I guess my perspective is more self-serving because I don't have any kids or anything like that. Or I don't know, I'm the last kid of 5 kids. So it's like, to me, I've always been like the one that there's nothing after me. So I don't know. I just feel like sometimes we take things so seriously that we become consumed by our own seriousness and we can't enjoy life at all.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I see you as somebody who's out in the world and you're doing things. So you don't know the impact that you're having on other people. So when I posted social media about the show today, I had about 5 people who I don't really know going, oh my God, what a great guy. Oh my God, he's really, the common theme about you was not even great comedian, really nice person.
Yeah.
So
I pay them to say that.
I don't think you do. These people are so rich, they don't need money. But you are making a difference.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. There's no point in being a jerk. And I respond to everybody that responds to me because I do feel like, I don't know what that person's going through, or I understand my position sometimes. Like, some of those people weren't the cool kids in high school, or they weren't the cool kids at all. They were always the dork or the nerd or whatever. And then they see me as somebody that's cool. And then when they communicate to me, I always respond back to everybody. Everybody that sends me a message, I respond back until it gets weird. Sometimes it gets some people just don't understand space, and they get, and that's when I cut them off. I just don't respond anymore because I know one. Well, I don't know much, but I know one of the things that I have is the ability to make that person feel better by responding back. Because if I saw somebody that I admired for whatever art, and I sent them a message and they responded back, that would lift my spirits. So I do that a lot, all the time. I take time out to speak to everybody, which could be like a bad thing or a good thing, whatever you want to see it as. But I always respond, and I always make sure I give them the same respect I would want somebody to give me. Well,
thank you for doing that, because you're one of the few people in the world, and it's a hobby horse of mine that say, return emails, return text messages, just say thank you, but no thank you, if that's it.
Yeah.
leaving people hanging.
Yeah.
As you said, you don't know what's on the other side of that
Yeah.
or underneath their iceberg, that just that acknowledgement and validation.
Yeah, I have a thing. That's one of my pet peeves. If you leave me on scene or if you don't respond to me, it's like if I can explain this. If it's someone that like it's a peer, I've like stopped talking to certain people because they didn't respond to me in a timely manner or at all, and I see them like in a comedy club. I'm like, why didn't you respond? That really bothers me because like, why would you? To me, that's the biggest sign of disrespect, especially if someone that I helped out in the comedy world. Like, there's been a lot of comedians that I've helped out, and then they've gotten, more things, and then you could tell that they're just they were using you, which is fine. You could use me all you want to, but respect me at the same time. I don't have to give respect back. So
No.
it's there's a certain limit that my niceness has, because people will just step on you if you let them. You have to have boundaries.
Boundaries. Love boundaries. Boundaries are everything. Put boundaries around yourself before boundaries around somebody else.
Yeah.
It works a lot better that way.
Yeah.
Hey, Ashley.
Yep.
You wouldn't believe it, but we're coming up to our first break
All right.
already.
Yes.
But I did have another question, and we talked about this a little off air.
Yeah.
When you're in a setting like this or a social setting, is there any pressure on you to keep delivering the laughs?
Like this?
Yeah.
Not this particular case, because we're speaking on things that are pretty serious, I guess, But there's no pressure on me to there's no pressure here at all. I'm very comfortable in.
But generally though, like if you're out and about, you might be, I don't know, out to dinner with your wife and
yeah, there's pressure when people recognize you, and then people come up to you and they think there's sometimes they do this thing where they just stare at you and you're just trying to, they just stare. I'm like,
if I stare long enough, I might laugh.
Or something. I'd rather just come up to me and say hi and we could talk, or take a picture or whatever it is, or if that. But it's just the staring really gets to me. Yeah. The only pressure that I feel is like when I'm on a cruise ship and I'm walking around and nobody really knows who I am before the show. But then after the show, you become this like little mini celebrity, and everywhere you go, people are staring, and that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So there's always a pressure there, but here at this particular station, not my feeling pressure at all.
That's good. I must be doing my job well then. So in the first break, typically I prepare to play what's called a very special guest song request game.
Yes.
Which is usually based on a list personally selected by you prior to the show.
Right.
But in your case, you left the selection up to me, meaning you either have no affinity with music, realised I probably have cool taste myself, or just couldn't be effed doing it yourself.
Yeah. That was probably the latter. I'm like, I don't know what songs to pick. You surprised me. So,
well, I'm going on a bit of a limb here to tie in my earlier reference to my interest in racial ethnic disparities that affect men's health around the world.
Yep.
So in this instance, stereotyping of African Americans, I would say, we're looking down the rap, hip hop, reggae route.
There you go.
So that would definitely be where we're heading. So
absolutely. When
we come back, I'm handing you the mic and the stage, and we're going to go all the way back to a little Ashley Fils-Aime.
Yep,
Fils-Aime.
Absolutely.
And you can let me know if the first song choice really did hit the mark.
If it resonates? Okay, cool.
All right. So you are listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and here you go. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and you're with Rae Bonney, an accomplished comedian, Ashley Fils-Aime.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We saw him recently landing gag after gag at the Melbourne International Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
Ashley, I kind of got that song right, but perhaps it was a bit of a reference to the past that we're going to discuss a little later in the show.
Yes.
Yeah,
how do I respond to that?
Don't.
Okay.
Just leave it. Thanks. Now, most guests that come on the show know that I love research.
Right.
I love talking,
but
I love to research what I'm speaking about. So I have done a little bit of a deep dive. The reason I do know about your music taste was due to my friend Dave O'Neill. And you were in a car with him probably back many years ago. You did a gig up the road from me in Burwood.
Yeah.
At a school charity function or something.
Yes, for George Caprianis,
Yeah, and so you guys had a bit of a chat on the way home in the car, and I happened to listen to that, so I got all my information from that interview. But, in that 27 minutes exactly, I listened to it on the plane on the way home from Brisbane the other night.
Okay.
But he also delved in quickly into where it all started for you, the family that you grew up in, and probably not what I expected, how you grew up in quite a religious, tight, restrictive kind of family.
Yeah, they were very strict. Look, I get it now, but
Were you born in the States or?
What happened was, I was born in New York, but I was just born there because when my mama got pregnant, what she would do, she would fly from Haiti, which is where my background, and she would fly from Haiti straight to New York and have us in American soil. That way we became an American citizen. That'd be crazy if it was Australian.
Yeah.
And then when she saved enough money, she eventually moved to Miami. So she did this 5 times. I'm the youngest of 5 kids.
Was your dad there at the same time?
Yeah, he was around.
Oh, right.
He was around, but he wasn't. I didn't even know he even existed. Because what happened was my mom had 5 kids. The 4 kids grew up separately from me because I thought my grandparents were my parents, and I just thought she was a woman I was visiting because my grandparents didn't want to let me go. So she would come in like from Haiti, and I'd see this lady. I'm like, oh, this is a cool lady, and then she would leave. And then one time we flew from Haiti, and my grandmother came with me, and she flew all the way to Miami. And then I met this guy who was very, very strict and very mean, and that was my dad. I don't know who this guy was because you're young. And when my grandparents left, I was just stuck with, and I met my brothers and sisters, didn't realize who they were, didn't know that they were actually I just thought they were other kids. And then they slowly, I was like 5, 6 years old, so I grew up by myself. So I grew up separately from them. And then when I met them and when they left me in Miami, it was kind of sad. Like they left. Now my whole life just turned around. Because in Haiti we had a maid, we had a butler. Because we're very pretty well off in Haiti. And then when I went to Miami, maid was gone, butler was gone. I'm living with 4 other kids, and this guy was who scares the crap out of me, which is my dad. And my mom, she was always cool, and there was like a very big switch. I just remember it was very smooth roads, and electricity was a lot easier because Haiti was different. We had to share electricity from like one part of the town. So I remember driving on the street and like, oh, these streets are smooth, and that's what I remember. And yeah, it was a bit of a shock for me, and I had to adjust really quick. And I've always, even growing up with them, I've always grew up separate from them because they went off to do like graduating with honors, and my older sister's a doctor, married to a doctor. Another one's a preacher, married to a preacher. One's a teacher.
Daughter of a preacher man.
Yeah, pretty much. And my mom, she built her own church from the ground up. And
what, with her own hands?
Well, financially.
So I got this picture of your mom in the dirt,
Oh, no. No, my mom's a gangster.
Yeah.
She had people do stuff for her.
So I would be playing her rap music.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it was just I don't know. I grew up separately from them. Like I didn't finish high school. They all graduated with honors in like college and stuff like that. So I'm what they call a late bloomer, And I started doing when I turned 18, I wanted to do comedy. They go, you can't do comedy in this house. So they kicked me out of the house. And
so when did comedy start sort of igniting inside of you?
I always knew I was going to become a comedian since I was 8 years old. When I had to learn. See, that's another thing. I had to learn English because I spoke French and Creole.
I was going to say French.
Yeah, so I had to learn English. The first English learned word was napkin. And I remember that because I was in school and I needed a napkin. And then I asked the older person who was a principal. I didn't know. We're in the cafeteria and there's a guy walking and I need a napkin. And I waved him off and he's like, "What do you want?" And I said napkin. And that's because napkin in French is the same as in English, napkin. And he goes, "Oh, you want a napkin?" I go, "Oh, that's the first time we communicated." And then he brought me a napkin, and that's why I remember the word napkin because like. They had these classes where for students who didn't speak English, and they had my own like private tutor in the class that spoke French, would translate for me the whole time, and like I was in the lower reading group, and then by the time I was in the 3rd grade, I was in the highest reading group, like the other groups, and I started winning spelling bees. I just picked up on English very quick after a while. It took me 2 years to learn English, and then I still speak the other languages.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and Spanish too.
Yeah, I'm sitting here forgetting I'm on air. I'm just listening to you speak, going, "Oh, I probably need to do something next, like ask you a question." that's in terms of, igniting the comedy piece in you when you were 8.
Mm-hmm.
Was that because you were making people laugh, or you were just stringing stuff together in your head that was making comic sense?
I noticed that people, because my parents didn't buy me the coolest clothes, and they made fun of you for that. They had the ability to. It wasn't like we grew up poor. They just didn't buy me the coolest shit, So it's like they make fun of me. So then I started making fun of
the kids at school?
Yeah. Like they would make fun of me harsh, and so especially African American kids, because I looked like them, but I didn't sound like them because I still had a strong Haitian accent. So they were very, very tough on me, and I learned to make fun of myself. As I was making fun of myself, they would laugh, and that turned into making fun of other things. But I never made fun of other people. I could never roast. To this very day, I still can't roast because I have a hard time making fun of people because I remember I was a person being made fun of. Like when I'm with my friends, we say harsh shit to each other because we're friends. But like just outly making fun of somebody you don't know is very, very, it's off-putting for me. But I started noticing that there was something called a class clown. They would call me the class clown, and everybody would come around me, and we all laugh. And then when I would go home, because of the strict upbringing we had, we couldn't really go out. So then, like, I would impersonate all my family in front of them, and they would laugh. Like, they would, on Friday nights, we'll all get together, and then I'll do a whole skit about the whole family, and I'll impersonate my dad. And they just encouraged me. And then when I went to church, they let me write plays and all this. And I started noticing, man, I really enjoyed making people laugh. When I was
If
8,
your dad would have watched you do one of those impersonations, would he have been happy with you?
I think he would have enjoyed it, but not showed it. Like, that's how he was. He would have showed. He would have enjoyed. He had to. How could you not laugh? I'm impersonating you. It was a form of flattery. But when I was 8, this one of my babysitters, I don't know what they call them. After school, I had to stay after school, and there would be like a certain kids, and they'll have to watch us. And then this girl came up to me, and she's like, "You're gonna be the next Eddie Murphy." I never forgot that. I didn't even know who Eddie Murphy was. And then I started researching him, in the sense, like, I started asking people because we didn't have internet back then, and they were saying he's a comedian. I go, "What's a comedian?" I go, "That's someone tells jokes." I go, "That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that." And then 10 years later, I started doing comedy. My job every year was to be the funniest person in the class, and that's why I got expelled in 10th grade. They kicked me out of school.
Your job is in your self-appointed job?
Yes.
Yep.
To be the funniest person. And there's one kid, his name is Brett Parks. He gave me some competition in the 4th grade. It was me and him trying to be the funniest person. I'm like, man, this guy's good. And this guy's good. He's actually a preacher now. We're friends on Facebook. I found him like years later. He's a pastor now.
Well, what is it with you inspiring these preachers and pastors?
It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm the muse for people to become, I don't know, spiritual. I don't know clue.
So how did your family wrap their heads around this was going to be your career?
They made fun of me. My mom's the type of person that allows me to do whatever it is I'm going to do, and then when it messes up, she goes, "Well, you said you wanted to do it." She always gave me the freedom to do whatever. To this day, I have the freedom to do whatever I want, and if it goes awry, and then she'll tell me, "Look, I didn't want you to do it, but I can't tell you what to do." She's always been that way with me. So when I started doing comedy, she was like, "Yeah, you can do it, but not in this house, So you have to get out because everybody's a scholar here." So I'm like, "Oh, no problem." It wasn't anything malicious. So she would.
So you had to leave?
Yeah, I lived in my car for 2 years, right?
So your parents lived in a house and you lived in a car?
Well, they had several houses, because they love buying real estate. But the thing is that it sounds mean, but it's not.
It sounds a little bit disparate.
Look, I feel because I was okay with it. You're 17.
You must
going
have
to
a
18.
beautiful car.
It was a 2-door, but I had a system. I would sleep in my car, either in front of my girlfriend's at the time, in front of her in her yard, or in the garage of the comedy club. Like my girlfriend at the time, her mom was really cool. She was like, "I see what you're doing, but you can't sleep in the house. Sleep in the front yard, but I can't have you in my house sleeping." And then like I'd get up, take a shower in her house, and then I'd go to work. But I worked at the comedy club all day long. I worked telemarketing in the daytime, and at nighttime I was a waiter, and I would watch comedy. And then one day, a comic didn't show up, so they had me go on stage, and I performed. And then that's when Pablo happened to be in the audience, and everything just worked out. And I literally went, and he sent me a message, like he gave me a note. He's like, "Call this number, meet me at the hotel, at the Doubletree Hotel. I want to talk to you about what we can do." I'm like, "Oh, I've heard about this like weird gay stuff." I thought it was some weird shit, but I went there. He's like, "Listen, here's what's gonna happen. well, we're gonna become friends. I think you're really funny. They're not giving you the respect you deserve. They're making fun of you behind your back. And he started telling me all these things I wasn't aware of. He goes, I want you to tell them that I'm working with you and see how they treat you. And then I went the next day at the comedy club, and I'm like, hey, Pablo wants to work with me, and everybody started acting really weird about me. And then like a year later, he flew me to LA, and I was like, I was just turned 19, and I just started touring with him. And every week we were at a different comedy club, and I became his opening act. So I really went from like living in my car for 2 years, and then meeting this guy who was like very prominent in the business, and become his opening act. And he has a big house, and my life just flipped, turned around.
Just because he saw you once.
He saw me one time. He's like, okay, this guy's... Every comic has somebody that helps him out to some extent, you know?
What do you think it was about you that really piqued his interest?
He told me that he didn't appreciate the way that people were treating me behind my back. I wasn't aware of this, you know? Mm-hmm. But this happens today. Like, there's people like who talk shit behind my back today, and I just shake their hands. I see them all the time. I don't say nothing to them. But that's just part of the business. But he didn't like it. And he's like, they're doing this to you. You have a lot of potential. You remind me of myself. And, you know, and I got really lucky. That I went, and that's how I started my comedy career. I just went from nothing to performing somewhere every week.
Isn't it interesting, though? People often talk about their position now. You know, your position then was you were, you know, doing it pretty hard, you know, living in your car and, you know, working a million jobs, and then he just discovered and you got lucky. Yeah. But I talk to people about the trajectory that got you there. Right. It's the years and years and years since you were, you know, 5 years old, you know, losing that contact with your grandparents, and then having to be resilient and move through that relationship with your dad, and collecting, you know, even almost being trumped in grade 4 by Paul. What is his name, that kid?
Oh, Brett Parks.
Brett Parks, yeah. I mean, gosh, hopefully he's listening in now, because Brett would not be funny anymore. But, yeah, what led you there? So I'm pretty sure that it was more than him feeling sorry for you. He would have seen something in you that you had made happen, not just overnight. Yeah, it was something that something that he saw that I felt, I'm glad he saw it, and then it got exploited. And then, you know, every story has it goes, you're up, and then you start noticing things happening around you. You're like, this is not something, and then you're trapped. Because I was with him for 11 years, you know, and it was 11 years we started touring, and that's when the, drugs and alcohol started getting became a factor. You just thought whatever I saw, which is what I thought the way things were, because I went from Miami to Hollywood, and I was living in Hollywood, and I thought this is how it is, so this is what you do. And then, you know, when you grow up a certain way, you start seeing things, and you start thinking, get accustomed to it, and you think this is how it is. So I was, involved in a lot of those things as well, and then I escaped to Australia. That's why I came to Australia. I think you're skipping way too far ahead for me, because we still have like an hour and 15 minutes to go. So we have to go at my pace here.
All right, cool. You ask the questions then.
No, but that involves a lot more respect, that story, I think, than skipping over it. Okay. So I'm going to really focus on that in the next segment. Yeah. So let's going back to, here you are, you're at this comedy club, then you've got that whole year before you launch off with Pablo. Yeah. Pablo, yeah. What were you doing? Were you writing your own material?
Yeah, of course. I would write and write and write.
I'm just watching too much Hacks on, Apple TV, where she gets all of her stuff written for her.
Oh, yeah. I love that show, by the way.
It's a great show.
Here's the thing. When I first started doing comedy, here's how it happened. I went on a cruise ship with an ex-girlfriend of mine who had cheated on me, and we broke up. And then she calls me out of nowhere. She's like, hey, do you want to go on this cruise? And I'm like, we're not friends, but then I've never been on a cruise ship before. So I go, of course, let's go.
Cognitive dissonance.
Pretty much. And then I went on this cruise ship. The ship went to nowhere. It was called Discovery Cruise Lines. It went nowhere, and they just out for 3 hours and get back. So we're out, and then I just happened to. It was for her friend's party, and we're hanging out. And then there's this karaoke bar, so we're there. And then I get on the microphone, and I start singing "You're Not Alone" by Michael Jackson. But I actually changed the words to "Leave the Kids Alone." At the time, it was cool back then to say that. So I just started freestyling. Everybody's laughing. I'm just being my jolly, funny self. Everyone's laughing except for this one lady in the audience who's just staring at me. I'm like, oh, I guess you can't please everybody. So anyway, as we're laughing, as everybody's laughing, I'm done. Now, when I'm done, I'm sitting by the bar, and she calls me over, and I go, "Hey, what's up?" And she's like, "Have you ever thought about being a comedian?" I go, "I always did, but I don't know where to start." And she goes, "Well, I'm one of the crew's bookers on the ship." And then she's like, she wrote this number. She goes, "This guy named Arthur, call him, okay? Call him, and we could see what we can do." I go, "What's going on right now?" She goes, I want you to work as a comedian on this cruise ship." I go, "Oh, wow, this is crazy." So for months, I kept calling Arthur, and Arthur wouldn't pick up the phone. Right, he wouldn't pick up the phone.
One of those people.
Yeah, and then one day he picked up. He's like, "Hey, welcome aboard, mate," and he gave me this whole. So I'm telling everybody I'm a big comedian, and like this is when I was still like in high school. I'm becoming a comedian. And this is like when they they expelled me. So I was still going on campus and hang out. The teachers knew I had this relationship. Like I can get away with a lot of shit, pretty much. And then I told everybody I was gonna become a comedian. I was like 17 years old, and then I got the call to join the ship, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I joined the ship, but I'm not a comedian on the ship. I'm an usher or a staff member. I'm getting up early in the morning. I'm handing out flyers. I'm hosting bingo events. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I thought I was becoming a comedian, and then they go, no, you don't have a script yet, but we're gonna write you a script. So they wrote. Looking back, how fortunate was I that they were like, we know, you don't have a script, so they wrote me a script, and I did my first show. It was horrible, and then.
Horrible in what way?
It was just horrible.
No laughs, or the script was just not in tune with you?
It was both. And they're like, did I try this joke? I was just, and then they said, write your own script. Then I met this lady named Linda Kornowski. That was her name. And I still try to find her. She goes, listen, I'm the cruise director, but I'm also a comedian as well. So I want you to, comedy is a message. It's a message. What are you trying to say? And I go, okay, cool. So I went and I wrote my own stuff. And it was just horrible. Everything was just horrible all over the place. And then I was bombing on stage, but I was enjoying it. But I was still like living on a ship, getting paid $800 a week. We go to Bahamas every other day. At the time, I wasn't drinking, so I was just pocketing that money, And then one day I had a show to do, and I thought it was at 8 o'clock, but it was at 9. No, I thought it was at 9 o'clock, but it was at 8. So I'm upstairs on the drums, playing with the band, like just messing around. I was singing Stevie Wonder, I Just Call, Say I Love You. I'll never forget it. I'm like, I just call. I'm pretending to be blind or whatever. Then I go, I'll see you guys later. And I go downstairs. And as I'm going downstairs to get ready, I hear the other comic performing already. And he's singing. He has a song where he plays, hey, girl, what you doing now? When I hear that song, I get triggered too. And I go, why is he singing that act for? And then I go, and he's performing. I go, what the hell? And I look at the schedule, and I was meant to be on stage. I go, oh, shit. Well, I guess I missed the show. And then I'll never forget it. He gets off the stage. He goes, Ash, you're fired, mate. I go, whoa, what the? And we docked, and I got off the ship, and I thought it was over. I thought I ruined it. Then my best friend at the time, named Peter Beckford, just got back from college. He goes, hey, Ash, I'm gonna take you. This is when I'm still like living in the house. I didn't get kicked out just yet. And he goes, we're gonna get you. We're gonna find you some work. We're gonna turn you a comedian. So he came with a stack of magazines, and he had circled out stack of newspapers, and he had circled out all the comedy clubs, and he drove me to all of them, and half of them were closed. And there was one called the Improv, and I looked at it, and I'm like, they only have famous people here. He goes, we're gonna go there anyway. So he drove me there, and the manager, I meet the manager, and he goes, no, you can't perform here, but we do have an open mic. I go, what's that? He goes, well, we know it's a competition. You can join it. You can try that. So I said, no problem. And then he gave me some free tickets to come back. So my friend and I went to his house, and I wrote what I really wanted to say because I had to be clean on the ship. So I wrote all these jokes, and me and him just rehearsed it. And then went to competition. There was 14 comics, right? I was the 15th one. It was a competition, and I beat everybody on my first try, on my first show. And I knew I had something there. And ever since then, I kept coming back to the Improv. And then that's when my family found out I was going to the Improv, and they go, oh, you really going to become a comedian, not in this house. But I had a relationship with them.
Why not?
They come, there's scholars in my family.
So it wasn't a religious thing?
It was like, you can't live here doing that.
Okay.
We don't respect that.
Is that a shame thing? Or?
I don't know, but it could be. They're like, we just don't want you. You can't live. Because my mom wasn't living there. Because my mom had several houses, and she gave the house that we were growing up in to my brother. So it was my brother kicked me out the house. He's like, you're not going to be, you think you think you're going to be some sort of entertainer, not in this house. And my parents weren't backing it up at all. They're like, yeah, we're not backing you. We're backing him because you can't do comedy. That's not what we're about. You didn't graduate high school, so you got to, figure it out on your own. I was ecstatic. You would think that would when I tell people this story, they go, "What? This sounds mean." Like, no, I don't care. I was happy. I had freedom. I could do whatever I wanted to do.
Yep.
There was no one disciplining me. My father just gave up. I'm like, this is great. Thank God he gave up, because Jesus Christ, this guy's a hard ass. So I just stayed at the comedy club, and I became this thing, like a fixture. Everybody knew who I was.
So you had life on your terms.
Yes.
Yeah.
But nobody knew I was living in my car. Nobody knew the outside of it. Nobody knew that it was very difficult when everybody's asleep. That's when I hated life. Like, 'cause everyone's asleep. There's no one to communicate with. So now you have to figure out your time. But then, my girlfriend's mom was pretty nice, so I just slept in front of her house or my friend's house. I would just find a way to sleep in the car. I lived in my, all my clothes were in my boot.
Yeah.
So, but it was, looking back on it.
You almost said trunk then, didn't you?
Trunk, yeah. I was trying to figure out.
You realized where you were?
Yeah. Trunk, boot, car park, garage.
Car park. Yes.
So it was all these things that you went through, and I went through, and that's when I discovered Pablo. Well, Pablo discovered me, and then.
Well, that's perfect timing, because we've reached the next song break.
Yes.
Do you know what? I promised I would not say Last show I did, it was a record, because I had to pre-record. I interviewed in the UK.
Yeah.
And I listened to myself back, and I had to write down all these things, the amount of times I say
really,
and terrible, terrible stuff. So I just noticed I said but do you know improv?
Yeah.
When my kids have birthdays, I always get them an experience. I don't like all the tacky, stupid presents.
Yes.
So it's always an experience.
Yes.
And this year, Rory he's my youngest, he turned 15. And I booked secretly improv classes, right? And so he didn't know. So we're literally walking up the stairs of the improv club in Melbourne. And he said, what are we doing? Oh, we're going to see a comedy show, because he could see all the pictures. And I said, kind of, but you're kind of in it.
Yeah.
And so we did this improv class together. He was amazing. He was so good. He was so good. And I thought, because I speak for a living, I've got this stuff in the can. Yeah. And I didn't realise how much I overthink what I say. It was such a great experience.
Were you saying a lot?
Yes, it's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, our very special guest song request. Do you want to have a crack at guessing? I've got some really lame clues, cryptic clues.
Okay, I'll take a clue.
Okay. If there was an earthquake accompanied by an all-night electrical storm. So that's the cryptic clue.
If there was an earthquake accompanied by an all-night electrical storm.
Yep. So what would an earthquake do?
It would rock.
Shake,
rattle, and roll?
Well, but it goes all night.
Oh. I want to rock around and party every day?
No. It's the electrical bit refers to AC/DC.
This is an AC/DC song.
You shook me all night.
Oh, you shook me on that long. Oh, that's yeah, you just pretty much said it. Yeah. That's what I thought it was.
And again, this is Dave O'Neill telling Dave O'Neill you love Kiss and 80s rock.
I did.
So that's where all of this comes from. But then you referred to a few other songs with, I like those as well. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to delve into this Pablo. What's his last name?
Francisco. And tell Dave to book me in his club. He keeps forgetting. Dave, if you're listening.
Yeah,
I want to do the fun house.
Oh, okay. I'll get you on there for sure. I don't even know him, but I like to be known. So when we come back, we're going to deep dive into that. So don't go away. You're listening to 94.1 FM, 94.1 FM, 3WB. Oh.
Yep.
We were dancing around the studio so much, and I almost fell off my chair. Not at all, actually. We were talking about some healthy... We're both sober people, so we've both reached sobriety at various stages of our life, and we were talking about just how great that is, and some of the things that we put inside our bodies now that so respectful and great. I was just talking about honey. I had... Ben Moore on the show recently from Ben's Bees up the road, and honey, it's the oldest substance in the world.
Yep.
Medicinal, joyful, whatever that might be.
It doesn't rot.
No,
Get bad.
they embalm the old emperors and stuff in Honey.
Yep.
For gazillions of years.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC with Rae Bonney, just in case you missed that. I'm joined by Ashley. Can you say your name?
Fils-Aime.
Fils-Aime.
Yeah.
Fils-Aime. You'll know him from the many years of gracing our comedy stages here in Australia and around the world.
Yep.
Because we have referenced a few times your 11 years spent on the road with Pablo Francisco.
Yep.
Who had a very public fall from grace in 2017. And you've talked about how you got that gig, but can you paint sort of how that all fanned out and unfurled?
As far as like what happened?
Yeah, so you spent a year sort of doing your stuff, and then he picked you up as his support act.
Yeah, support in many ways, not just a support act, just a support. I became a support system for him. But it's a marriage of, okay, there's a guy who's very you've seen Hacks.
Yeah, I love Hacks.
It's just like that.
Oh,
it's when I saw that go, that's what it's like. It's like, but you have this really big, popular, famous comic, and then you have an unknown comic who, we all look up to all the big ones. You want to do something that somebody else is doing, you watch what they're doing. So everything he did, I did, and what came with that was a lot of, narcotics and alcohol and things of that nature.
Were they new for you?
Yeah. I never did any of that stuff before. And I just thought that's how it is, and it became a thing where I had to keep up, because when people are on uppers and those type of things, you have to keep up. You literally have to keep up with them. And then it became a thing where I became like, responsible for him through his management, like as far as like, if he missed any shows or this and that, and I'd have to be the one to rebook the flight and do all these things, as I'm also under the influence as well, and his management would always shift the blame on me, because they didn't, for some reason, they never put the blame on him. Like they made me the fall guy, so to speak, because he's the money maker. Mind you, he's making a lot of money for them. He's making at least the minimum he'd be making was around 30 grand a week. That was a minimum, and that's back then. And I would imagine he's doing more now. So I wouldn't say he had a fall from grace, because he's still performing, he's still selling out, but he did have a public mishap. But I already left. I was already here in Australia.
Yeah.
I left because I tried leaving the tour at work. I tried leaving the tour with him before, and unbeknownst to me, I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is...
When did you start wanting to leave? Because 11 years is a long chunk of life.
Around the 5th or the 6th year.
Oh. I
was like, I can't do this anymore, because people didn't know my name. They always referred to me as the black guy with Pablo. And then, he was doing things that was hurting my relationships with other people, like
isolating you from
exactly. And I wasn't, hindsight tells you all this stuff, but when it's happening, you don't really recognize what's going on.
Because you've also gone from a guy living in his car to, a life of privilege.
A huge house.
Yes.
So huge. Like, those are like jacuzzi in the living room. Along in the living room was also like an arcade. Like, that's how big the living room was, just to give you perspective. So you're thinking, man, you've made it. And you start realizing this isn't my life. So when I went through all these things with him, it was a situation where I felt like I had to get out of, because there were things happening that I didn't agree with. And before people think it's weird, nothing sexual, none of that shit at all. It was more mental abuse. It's like traumatic things that you'll go through. Like, man, why is this happening? Like you get in roadblocks here and there. You try to escape and you can't escape, because I said, when I left, I'm going to leave this. Mind you, the reward was, you'd be at a different comedy club every other week. Every week we were flying to different improv, sometimes we would fly to Norway for a day and come back. It was just so, because he was so in demand. I got to experience that life. With him, I did about 17 countries or 16 countries, but just touring with him. Then I started noticing that people weren't talking to me for me. They were trying to get close to him, and then they would try to tell him things about me, and then they would tell me things about him, like try to make us go against each other and stuff. But he was also a ringmaster of that too. When you're not sober, you do unsober things. So
what was your style of comedy back then? Being under the influence, was it different?
Nah, for some reason was always he made it a point to always be goofy. He's like, comedy's about being goofy. So I thought it was about being goofy, but it's got to be a hint of cleverness behind it, because I'm very animated and I'm very like just animation. That's my thing. That's my side of comedy. Then nothing really changed when I left him, because I just became more mature with my animation. That's all that happened. But you're on stage and you haven't slept in like 3 days, and you're high off your head and you're performing, and you just learn how to deal with that. Like we spent more times being high than we were sober. Like literally, like it was just very
that'd be exhausting.
Yeah, and then we sleep for like 2 days straight, 2-3 days straight. That's it. It was a system that I was accustomed to, that I got used to, and that's why I feel like those are the hard shows. Like when you're on your fourth bender or whatever, whatever you call it, and you have to go on stage and perform without not a wink of sleep, not a nap, nothing. You're just constantly up for those times, because that's what uppers do. And you're performing and you get through it and you're sweating, and those are such difficult times as a performer, but you learn how to adapt to it. That's why in today, like as being sober, there's no such thing as a hard show anymore for me, because all my scruples are together. The only thing that's a hard show is performing in front of like PG shows, and you have to be clean and on cruise ships, which is annoying.
Disney shit.
Yeah, weird. Carnival. They make you do PG shows, which is fine, but it's just very they're very it's weird.
PG for adults.
PG for adults, because their kids come.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, you have to just be. It's I just started doing those. I've been doing cruise ships for a while, but I just started with Carnival a couple of weeks ago, and it was my first time. I've avoided PG shows like the plague for like 27 years of my career. Never had to do one. Then I started doing them, and it's very like, in your mind they're laughing, but in your mind just you're really editing yourself, and you're doing 2 different ones at the same time. But the last one that I did, this little kid came up to me and goes, "Man, you made my day." And to me, when that happened, I think that was one of the best compliments I've ever had from a kid. I'm like, I was able to connect to that kid for him to understand, because I was doing jokes that he shouldn't have understood.
Yeah.
Or barely on the surface. And I figured they just, and they want to come and take pictures with you. I'm like, do you guys understand? Like, okay, cool. And I realized something. I'm like, oh, they just like your personality. They just like who your energy on stage. People get drawn to that, and they really enjoy themselves. They're not really paying attention to what you're saying. They're just watching your movements, and they're just, it's the vibration that you're giving off to them.
Yeah, it's interesting how you say about animation. I have a 10-month-old granddaughter who I'm very lucky to have.
Yeah.
And, she's just cacking herself about stuff now at 10 months old. And it's all about animation, because we're all quite animated. And my daughter, Rose, she dances around, and Evelyn just laughs,
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. When you're performing, you're not really telling jokes, and that's not the only thing they're looking at. They're I always say comedy, the audience is like because I'm a guy, the audience is like a woman. They say a woman knows whether or not she wants to sleep with that guy within the first couple of seconds that they meet him. That's how the audience is. They know whether they're going to like you within the first couple of seconds, and that's how you approach it. They've already figured out whether they like you or not. So by the time you get on stage, they've already figured out whether they're going to like you. And if they don't like you, now you have to put some work in. So when I perform, the second I'm visible, like if I'm walking through the audience, the show starts there. That's when that's when the character comes on. I'm waving through them. I'm doing all these things so they can put their guard down.
Warm them up.
Yeah, before I start speaking.
Yeah.
I make them anticipate my voice. Like, what's it going to sound like? And then you have just a quick couple of seconds to grab them, to get them. And once you have them, just hold on to them and never let them go until it's time to release them from your grasp. So that's how it works. So energy is everything. I just try to before I speak, I get them on my side. That's the goal. That's the main thing that I do, because as Robert Williams says, they have to like you first. If they don't like you first, then you're in for a hell of a hard time. And I've had those shows where they just didn't vibe with what I was doing in the beginning, so then I had to switch gears and get them to laugh. You could just tell what's going on. Just know it's comedy is 100% intuition versus what's going on. It's intuition more than it is executing your plan. Yeah. So,
but I was watching a clip, a TikTok of you this morning. Yeah, it was like that. No, it wasn't at all. And you were telling the joke around repetitive words in Australia.
The piss joke?
Yes.
Yep.
And we saw that at the festival, and
Yep.
it was really, really funny. And
Yep.
I've watched it again this morning, and it was just as funny the second time around. And it got me to thinking about material. And I know this myself, that I have to present the same material over and over again because every audience is seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
I can't recreate myself every time because then people will miss out on what they're seeing.
Right.
For me, though, I have to somehow internalize the freshness and make it fresh and make it the first time for me every time. What is it like for you when you're executing the same thing over and over again for yourself?
Well, to be honest with you, I feel like if I'm doing something, I'd rather do something that I know that works than take a chance on something that I don't know if it doesn't work.
What if somebody's sitting in the audience for the third or fourth time, which often
that happens. That happens a lot.
Are you looking at them going, I'm so sorry, you've got to watch this all over again?
When I see them, that one person, it could be 100, I don't know, I don't care how many people in the audience, it could be a lot. If I see somebody that has seen my show before, or sometimes they make it known, hey, I saw you the other day, I'm like, oh shit. So I just change the whole thing up. I come out and I don't come out the same just for that one person in the audience, because that really bothers me.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll be doing a joke and everybody's laughing, but that one person, I go, shit, they see my show before. And then later on they start laughing. I'm like, oh, they probably haven't. I rather, because you want to do what works. If you know this joke's going to get you a laugh, do it. The whole thing about it being fresh, that doesn't really bother me at all, except for when I'm doing an open mic night. That's when I don't do things that I know works. 'Cause that's where I'm allowed to fail. You don't want to fail on stage. You don't want to fail on stage. To me, failing trumps trying to make it fresh for myself. It's always fresh for myself.
Is it hard to define failure in stand-up comedy, though?
Is it what?
Is it hard to define failure? It could be for so many reasons that it doesn't work. It could be the audience. It could be lots of different things.
It's only failure if you don't learn from it.
Oh, yeah.
Failure is a blessing. Failure just means bombing. That's a blessing in disguise. I always tell comics, when you bomb, man, it's such a blessing. It's a gift, and if you don't open that gift, and you're missing out, because it teaches you what pain feels like, and it teaches you not to do that shit again, and it teaches you to go around. That's bombing is necessary.
And
so
humility
necessary.
As well, I think.
Yeah. Every comic we know, if we have a string of, like, let's say you're doing 7 shows, and you do 5, you go, okay, the bomb, we're due for one now. We're due for a bad show. They say that, but I'm like, I'm not due for any of them. If it happens, it happens. But
yeah, well, then you're in it, and then you deal with it.
Yeah, I'm very unorthodox with this, so yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Probably is your little bit of foil as well, it makes you different too.
Yeah.
In fact, I had over a year ago now Lisa Sharp on the show. She's a comedian
I know Lisa.
Yeah. We met in a park.
Really?
Walking our dogs. Yeah. And it was dark. And I'm not a natural brunette. I'm a redhead underneath all this. So I had like hair dye in because it was 6 o'clock in the morning. Who's going to see me?
Right.
Lisa saw me. Anyway, that was a long story. But I've been to see her. She's great. And she didn't even start until she was in her 40s. Yeah,
I've seen her admire. I have a comedy club that I run, a room that I run every Monday called Funny at the Brunny. It's always, and she's been there several times. That's how I know her.
Yeah,
I've seen her there. She recently accomplished some kind of goal.
She got married.
Nah, it was that's a goal, but
she did get married.
That wasn't the goal. She accomplished something in comedy that was very, very notable. Yeah, I forgot what it was. Either she had a show. There was something I saw. I'm like, oh wow, she's finally doing it. I forgot what it was though, but I was like, I remember being proud. Like, yeah, good.
She's a wonderful example of human being, really.
Yeah.
But I think one of her goals years ago was to wear a white wedding dress, and she literally just did it the other day when she got married.
Well, mission accomplished.
Nah, she's good. She's great. I'm going to reverse the and say ma. 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 So getting to Australia, so you're exhausted after 11 years. You've probably been a bit groomed, a bit stonewalled, a bit blocked in what your full potential is.
Yeah.
So why Australia? Was that just far away from your parents?
It was my parents and I we get along great. Like, my father's not around anymore, but we it's like I understand what they're trying to do. And now I understand what I was trying to do. And even though it sounds like it's harsh that they kicked me out of the house, it was I don't have any bad feelings about it. Like, my mom's a wonderful person, like, so it was, she was just being a mother. When I came to see, this is the thing, that's what I forgot to say. So I left the tour, and I started doing my, by the way, I was previously married, and I was living with my wife at the time, right? When I left the tour.
Where did you find time to get married during all that kerfuffle?
Well, it was one of the situations where when I was living in my car, I broke up with my then girlfriend, and then I met another girl who was living with a bunch of her friends. I'm like, oh, I'll just live with them, right? And we're just friends, and then everybody started like clicking up, and everybody started like becoming groups, and there was like war. So me and her became friends, and then we just turned up being a couple, and then at the time Pablo was like, "Hey, just come to LA, and you could work with me." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'll just work. I'll just with you." Right. So I said, I can't come because I'm with a girl now. He's like, oh, I'll bring her too. So then that's when I flew back to LA, because there was a time where like me and him were together, and then like he'd like tell me to go back to Miami until he could figure something out when there was 11 years, which is a very brief moment, which is why I didn't mention it. And then with her, when I was living in LA, I started talking to Pablo, and Pablo became dependent on me. So it's like, you should stay with me when you perform me, and then go back on the weekends or on Sundays when you get back on the road, whatever it was. Then they started beefing. They started having problems with each other. And then I started having problems with Pablo. Then I said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I'm going to leave the tour. So I left and started living with her. But what Pablo did was he went to all the comedy clubs and said he's not going to have me perform. He's not going to perform if they book me. And I didn't notice, because I was calling these clubs trying to get bookings. I'm like, I just toured. Like, I was just there. Like, oh, we can't have you. Actually, I don't know what was going on, but he had blackballed me from like, because he was a big gun. It's like, if you book him, you can't have me. So who are you gonna listen to, me or him? So listen to him. And then I didn't know what was going on. And then my wife at the time was treating me like shit, because like I wasn't bringing anything in. And mind you, there was a time where I stopped working and I became a limo driver so she can go to school. So I stopped performing because it wasn't consistent money. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And then so she started disrespecting me. And then Pablo calls me out of nowhere, like maybe a couple of months later, because he tried to tour with other people. He's like, it's not working with them. Do you want to come back on the road with me? I'm like, okay, cool. And then I remember I was like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, maybe you should. And I told her, I don't want to go on the road with you. And I don't want to go because he's doing this and that. And then one day she came home because she started getting progressively like more things. She was like a fashion designer, and she was getting these like opportunities. And she came home and she was like, listen, you need to do something with your life, or whatever it was. And at the same time, and she left the house because she went to go to one of her fashion shows. And Pablo called me. He's like, hey, let's go back on the road. And I was like, you know what? No problem. And I packed my shit. And when she left, I went to Pablo, and I never came back. I never came back to her. I just said, there's no way I'm gonna let everyone talk to me that way again. She's telling me to find a job, and I left my job because it was just all this nonsense was going around. So I started talking with Pablo, and then I just stopped. I was young. To my mind, I'm like,
sounds like growing up to
me. Well, then Pablo started disrespecting me. And I'm like, you know what? I can't go back to her because she's a disrespect me as well. So I just kept it quiet and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So it was like I was trapped. Then I started touring. We were touring in other countries. Then I came to Australia, and I was performing with him. He was the headliner.
Oh, he came here, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I came to Australia. And then as I was performing, there was a young lady in the audience in the front row, and then I didn't even recognize her because there's a lot of people there. And then she messaged me after the show, and she was like, "Hey, you did a great job." And I went to her Facebook profile, because that's what all men do. It's like, man, this girl's beautiful. She's gorgeous. So I was like, hey, listen, maybe you should come back to my hotel. She's like, I don't do that. I'm like, oh, come on. And she's like, she just didn't fall for, the regular stuff like all girls will fall for. And then I flew back to America, but we stayed in contact. And I was telling Pablo. But what I did was I kept her a secret from Pablo, because Pablo had this tendency of finding out who I was dating, and he would ruin that shit. Like, he would just ruin it. So I kept her a secret. And then I made a plan. So, I'm going to come back to Australia, and I'm going to visit you, but I'm also going to do a show. But if I tell Pablo I'm coming to see you, he's going to ruin that. So I called the comedy club, Comics Lounge. Yeah. I said, hey, man, I want to come and do a spot. Like, yeah, sure, no problem. So they booked me to headline. And I told Pablo, listen, I'm gonna go to Australia for about a week or two. He's like, oh, that's great. Well, you do, yeah, is that international? Yeah, go ahead and experience that. Little you know, I didn't plan on coming back. So I packed my suitcase and I came to Australia and I just cut him off. That was it. I didn't contact him ever again.
Yeah.
Mind you, every week we're we're scheduled to do another show.
Yeah.
I just say I'll be with for 2 weeks. Never again. And I just cut him off.
He could be listening into the show.
Oh no, he's like, we're cool now. We're cool now. We dropped the beef maybe 5 years ago. I spoke to him, but I just had to cut him off. I had to do my own thing, and I just started living my own life here in Australia.
Well, that takes a lot of strength to, not continue on something that, has some elements of working.
It was
and
a trip.
Consistency, yeah.
Because mind you, I'm with him, I'm in private jets, we're in limousines, and then next thing you know, I'm here in Australia by myself, and I'm selling tickets for the comedy club door to door. People throwing eggs at me at one point, and it was just it was a big shift. But mind you, I'm used to I feel like no matter what situation I'm put in, I thrive. No matter what happens, I actually get excited because I get to do something. And I get to go all the way with it because I get to experience it. I don't really when bad shit happens. I don't I get sad, but I also get excited because I'm this is a new opportunity for me to thrive and do something else. I always thrive in my environment.
Speaking of sad and the difference between, say, sadness and depression, while you were going through this 11 years of tumultuous life with Pablo, did you experience anything like depression or anxiety as a result
I had suicidal thoughts all the time.
Because of the substance misuse?
The come down is horrible, and then when the come down, I don't want to live this life anymore. People on the outside don't know what's going on. You're touring, you're making you're touring all these countries, you're touring all these cities or whatever, but it's a sad, lonely life in comedy. You just feel more sad, and, you try to mask that with, supplies with narcotics and alcohol, and that shit just when it wears out, all your dopamine is gone, your serotonin is gone. So now you're irritable, you're upset, and he's upset, and you're arguing, and all this weird shit happens. And
would it have been possible for you to have that occupation or that 11 years without joining the substance misuse brigade? Could you have done it clean? I
was doing it clean. I just thought this was what people do because I was with them. I don't regret it though. I think anything you go through in life, it makes you who you are today. But I kind of wish that wasn't a factor. But I don't regret it.
So you came here and then resumed with your wife?
Yeah, well, she wasn't my wife then. Oh. But even that was a bit, difficult because at the time...
what year was that?
Well, 2000 and... I came in 2011, and then they kicked me out of the country, and then I had to come back. Yeah, I was told to leave.
Why?
Because I was doing shows on a tourist visa. And at the time, I was just getting to know my wife at the time. And I'm like, shit. So what I did was, when I left, I went to my mom's house in Miami. And lo and behold, Pablo's in town. The day that I fly back, he's in Miami that week. And mind you, he's still trying to find me. Little as you know, well, he found out eventually that he's around the corner from me in Miami. And I said, I'm not going back to him. I experienced this whole new life in Australia, and I wanted to keep that. I was sober. I was I got my life together and shit. I know if I go back to him, it's back to that slavery shit. So I avoided him, and I stayed with my mom, and I just I worked at the comedy club. I did everything that I did when I first started doing comedy. After 13 years, I got a job at the comedy club. And the job, it took me 4 hours to get there. Because I had to get up, take a bus, the bus to the train, a train to another train. So it was a 4-hour trip to work for about 5 hours and 4 hours again. But the reason I did that was because I worked at the headquarters of the comedy club. The club had 4 different clubs, and that was the headquarters. So what I did was I was able to book myself. It was a great plan. So I was making $400 every 2 weeks. But the booker, I was right in her office working with her.
Public transport would have cost more than that.
Oh yeah, but you just. Like I said, you do what you got to do. I knew I was going to come back to Australia, so I just did. I kept my head clear. And then I was allowed back in the country. And then every year I've been here, I've just been more and more and more successful. Like I don't think I've ever been this successful in a while. Yeah. Every year it just gets better and better and better. Even with COVID and all that stuff happening, I never experienced, knock on wood, thank God, I never experienced anything difficult. And I'm at I'm at a point where I'm very...
How did you manage through COVID?
What do you mean?
Well, everyone's got their own story of how
I became alcoholic then.
Oh, right. I meant how you managed your occupation, but then you got back on it.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay.
I started drinking again because
Oh.
because I was away every week.
Yeah.
And then you're told you can't go anywhere, and my wife was working. She'd come home and she'd watch me, and she never gave me a hard time, but I felt like a loser.
So were you not working during COVID?
I can't.
Oh, that's right. So I thought you meant that you were working. I thought, well, unless you were doing all online stuff.
You can't do shit.
Yeah.
Nah, I couldn't do anything. I was getting because I have a small business. Comedy is considered a small business.
Yes.
So with every lockdown came $5,000. So every time I got a lockdown, every time they extended it, I think I made about $30,000 throughout the whole COVID situation. And then that money was spent, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's how I survived. You know. So I never really had a problem or a concern. You know. I feel like whatever you feel is going to happen to you, or whatever you're feeling, that's what the universe gives you. So this whole thing about cost of living crisis and on top of it, I see those things and I just don't pay attention to it. I don't let it consume me, I don't let it in my atmosphere at all.
Yep.
I don't allow that to enter. I think if you do that, then I know I'm very fortunate not to be able to have to suffer like that, but I just don't let it.
Well, even that word in the mental health space, I live with anxiety and depression as well, but the word suffering and struggling, I think, just grate me so much. It's more about how you live with what you've got and find the joy in it and find the kind of the quirky bits that go along with what you live with.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, if you went back to alcohol during COVID, how did you then stop it?
My wife told me to stop.
Oh, well, we all know addiction, that I guess if it was as easy as that, then we wouldn't have a problem.
Well, the thing is that I was never addicted to it. It was just always there.
Yeah.
So it became a thing where this is what you do. When I stopped touring with Pablo, I stopped doing everything that I did with him. It wasn't.
So you didn't need to do any program or anything.
No. It was just I didn't need that. But when the COVID came and we were doing a lot, there was nothing else to do to stimulate myself. So I was drinking a lot of drinking, and that led to problems in the relationship. She was like, you drink too much. And that wasn't abusive or anything like that. It was just I wasn't present.
Yeah, drunk people aren't nice anyway. I mean,
it was. Well, I don't think I was mean, but
no, but they're just not present.
I wasn't present. I wasn't there. She's like, you got to get counseling. So then I stopped. And I started getting counseling. As a matter of fact, I'm with my therapist tomorrow. I've been with him for about 3 years now. And he's been, as long as I've been with him, as long as I've been off of alcohol. Yeah. So, and we're at what he calls a maintenance level, which is maintenance. And he's, it's really turned my life around, and I'm in a great space. I made a lot of stupid mistakes, so I'm not perfect. But, for the past 3 years, I've just been in a place where I'm fully conscious of all my actions. And it's a great place to be. And fortunately, my wife is very understanding, and she's a big sweetheart. So, and the thought of losing somebody would straighten. If that doesn't straighten you up, then I don't know.
Yeah. Loss
is a great motivator.
Well, yeah, the absence of things that we need are quite inspiring. If they're things that inspire you to keep living, as you said before. What's the point of living, really? You've got to find a purpose. Yeah. And if you don't have purpose, then it's very easy to lose sight of.
You say we need, I think that's a dangerous place to be in relationships, because you should never need your partner. I don't need my wife. And I hope she never needs me. Because when you need somebody, then the person you want is out there. You should want them, not need them, because then you become dependent on them. I feel like I always tell her, don't need me. I would like for you to be around me because you want to be around me. That desire, not necessity, is what kills relationships. So people stick around for the wrong reasons, because they need that person, because they have kids, or because they need the person because for financial purposes. Then that's how people become unfaithful. That's how people just, so
exactly. That's why I'm single and have been for. I mean, it's always a boyfriend, but if people say, "Oh, but why aren't you in a relationship?" For that exact reason, I don't need anyone. If I met somebody that blew my hair back, and wanted to be with somebody that we complemented each other, well, that's a reason. But not just needing somebody to put a bookend at the other.
That's horrible.
I wouldn't get to do all of the other great things I get to do.
Yeah, there's no freedom. Neediness is the worst thing you have in a relationship. If like, I hope she never needs me, because then that means she's not with me because she wants to be.
That's right.
The desire
We should
fades.
only need water, air, and food, really.
Yeah, you should never need people.
No.
I mean, you
There's
do.
plenty of them around, so...
Except for like in like, you know, agencies and managers, you need them. Kind of need them.
Well, okay, we could philosophize about that forever, but we are up to our very special guest song request number 3.
Yes.
Now you're getting more used to the theme. You're going to have another crack at this.
Okay.
Something that probably happened a lot in your home growing up, and it's the first part of my surname. So this is about the song and the artist.
Beatings. Whoopings. No, I was kidding. Nope.
Praying.
And
yeah, it's actually living.
living on a prayer.
That's the one. Is that a good choice for you?
I am living on a prayer. Absolutely.
Do you have any like triggering stories for this one?
Nah, this guy's. That's just. Nah.
No, he's a top guy. He's a talented
like him.
little thing, isn't
Who's that?
he?
Who's that? Bono.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah, Bon Jovi.
John
yeah.
Bon Jovi. He's been in a few movies and stuff as well. Where
He's gangster. He Puff Daddy stole one of his songs, and sampled it without his permission. So now he has to pay Puff Daddy $8,000 for the rest of his life.
What? How often?
A week, I think.
A week?
$8,000 a week or a month for the rest of his life.
Oh, Puff Daddy's got heaps of money anyway.
Oh, he's done for right now.
Oh, is he?
Oh, he's done. Yesterday ended his career.
Oh.
He's done. If he can't come back from this. There's footage of him beating up his girlfriend in a hotel, and it's like he's dragging her, he's kicking her, and it's just, you know how sometimes there's video footage and there's footage where you can't really make out the person.
Yeah.
This is clear as day.
Yeah.
And he's grabbing her. He's kicking her. He's dragging her. He's throwing glasses at her, and this is all done in the hotel lobby. So the CCTV put it up, and then it just came out that he paid the hotel $50,000 to get that footage, but then somehow CNN got hold of the footage, and they released it yesterday.
Wow.
This guy is, well, first of all, if you put your hands on a woman, there's no support. I see some people like, oh, he's a black man. That's got nothing to do with it, man. No. You can't back up abusers, man. That's one thing.
You don't put your hands. Nobody puts hands on anyone.
That's the last straw. You don't. You never put. That's the. I don't know. There's no forgiveness. There's no excuse. There's no.
No.
You. That's, I don't know. I guess because I'm biased or whatever. But you just don't do that. You don't put your hands on people, man. And no matter who it is, if it's another dude, you get defending yourself, then it's fine. Even if a woman is hitting you, you still just walk away.
Well, if anyone's hitting you.
Yeah.
I think we've got to get away from this gendered thing because, without going down that rabbit hole, violence happens to men as well. And it can, often it is perpetrated by women too. So
it can be, but
it is.
I think.
Come to my counselling room every day and you'll see it.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can be. But, I don't know, man. Man got to be held accountable because, like, there's like I call it a femdemic where, like, there's a lot of women being abused at the hands of men who don't. No one deserves to get beaten, and Australia has the shittiest laws, the most stupidest laws when it comes to disciplining people. There's a domestic abuser. He gets out on bail, but meanwhile, 2 days ago, this footy fan gets a ban for life because he hugged a football player. It's like, it's stupid. And I think the crime, the punishment never fits the crime when it comes to domestic abuse for women.
I guess from where I sit, I think it's an everybody's issue, and I would certainly not contest that women are often victims of violence, and it's absolutely terrible. However, when I have men in my room who are beaten up and cut up and burnt, and they say to me, why do I have to be one of these men to get up and be better for women? I don't have an answer for them.
Yes, and we don't say anything.
And where do I go to get support? And the answer is nowhere.
Nowhere.
So
I was one of those guys.
Yeah. So
I had a girlfriend who beat the shit out of me, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk about it. I think it's the first time I ever mentioned it, but yeah.
Is that okay though? Is that okay that happened to you?
No, it's not okay.
No.
And you have nowhere to go.
No.
Otherwise, you'll be called weak.
Well, or the question would be asked, what did you do to her to make her do that to you?
No, you know what I mean? There's nothing you can do.
Well, there you go. I think Bon Jovi's like, can you please play my song for me? I think you get the point, everyone, though. Later on during the song. Anyway, you're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC. And when we come back, we're going to have time to wrap the show, talk about what's up next for you, Ashley.
Yes.
And where people can find you, how they can learn from you, all that kind of jazz. Oh, welcome back. You're listening to 94.1 FM. It's 3WBC, and you're with Rae Bonney and Ashley Fils-Aime,
Yes.
who can be described as many wonderful things, but how would you describe yourself? What do you call yourself when people say, hey, what do you do?
It depends on if I feel like talking to them for a long time. I tell them I'm a comedian, but that's the last bit of information I tell them. If I'm in an Uber and they ask me what I do, I go, I tell them I'm going to a comedy show, and I just try not to lie to them. And they go, well, what do you do there? I go, shit, I work there. And then try to leave it at that. Yeah. You tell people you're a comedian, and it's not fun. Yeah. It's never fun telling people you're a comic. You think it would be, but people they just think you're a joke machine, or if you're serious, or if you can't be normal anymore. You're no longer normal. You just see you as the comedian. So it's like, only people that tell people that they're comedians are the ones who aren't. Who just started doing comedy. Yeah. Or they'll do like a show. They'll do like 1 or 2 shows, and they'll tell everybody I'm a comedian because they want that attention. But real comedians don't want that attention when it's not necessary. Well, you're spending energy, aren't you? That you want to say for your audience, maybe. Yeah, you pretty much want to. I don't know. It's you want to protect yourself. Yeah. So yeah, I would like to lie to them, but I'm afraid of being cursed and having that job for real. If I tell them, hey, I'm an accountant, and next thing you know, I put that energy out there, the universe is like, well, now you're an accountant. So I'm very superstitious, extremely superstitious. Now, you asked me in the break how I take care of myself when I'm working with so many different people, often in quite trying circumstances. And one of the ways I take care of myself is I get up at around 4 o'clock in the morning and I create space for myself. Yikes. And one of the things I do is I grab my dog, Vincent. He's a therapy dog as well. And we walk. And when I'm walking, I join up with a few of my best friends. And my best friends one of them is Andrew Huberman. Yes. So I listen to him and his podcasts. If anyone hasn't listened to Huberman Lab, it's an endless stream of understanding about the human condition in a way that is so palatable, well-researched, well-guested. It's endless. So what's your relationship with Andrew? I started listening to him when I started because I'm heavy into nootropics. I'm very heavy into how brain works, how to get my brain to function better so I can write jokes. And I fell upon him maybe, I want to say 2 years ago. Right before COVID. Yeah, because I remember watching him and he started talking about like how the brain works and these things and those things. But when I first started listening to him, I got sick, like really sick, because he was doing a study on the microbiome and how to like have it flourish and how that affects your gut health and brain health. So then I started messing with things to like get my gut in check, but I was getting rid of all this bacteria, but I didn't think about the good bacteria. And I got really sick. I go, oh shit, I'll leave him alone for a while. I associate that with him. And then he started promoting this. Recently, he started promoting this alkaline you said it before. Water. Yeah. Hydrogen water. Oh right, yeah. It's hit a button and yes. So I'm like, oh God, I get that. Yeah. So I got that, and then my throat started hurting. I'm like, what the. So then I'm like I listen to him about brain stuff, but nothing about like anything else. But then he's got some good sponsorship there, But that's the thing. He just talked about the actual water. He didn't talk about the actual product. And what they did was, is it Element? Is Elements the LMNT? Is that the bottle, the water bottle? No, they're in sachets, I think. Oh, that's another. I don't. Anything that he promotes, I usually don't pay attention to. I was saying. Apart from yerba mate, which I take, but he's been drinking that Argentinian tea since he was a kid. Yeah. So. But he's very like science backed. That's what I like about him. He backs up what he's saying with science, and he doesn't speak in like terms I don't understand. Because there'll be people I follow online, and then there's one guy I had to stop following him because this guy was just speaking straight thesaurus. I call it the thesaurus talk. He was like, okay, so we have this. You take this. There's something called the AMPK, and your brain is. And I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, just speak English, bro. Like,
Yeah, your
don't
brain
speak.
almost explodes.
Yeah, it's like I don't know why people do that. They talk to us like we're one of them. No, talk to us like we're not one of you. Like layman's terms, is what we use. That's what I like about Andrew. He backs up his science, but he does it in a way where I can understand.
And he never says ever.
Does he?
No, listen to him. But I'm listening to the Dr. Matthew Walker Sleep 6-part series with Matthew Walker. And that is amazing. If you think sleep is about going to sleep and waking up and getting enough and getting good quality, you're mistaken. There is just so much more about that. And he also interviewed, I don't know if you listened to the Dr. Paul Conti one, and that was also a 6-part series around, how the brain works and managing trauma. And he agreed to come on my show. He's actually
really
interviewed him on my show. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know.
Do you know about the what's his name? I can't. His name escapes me. But he figured out how to heal himself after a traumatic accident. Joe Dispenza.
Oh yes.
He's another one. He's another one I listen to. This is online thing called Gaia, GAIA, which is the Netflix of conscious stuff. So you subscribe to it, and there's hundreds of thousands of different shows, but it's all about consciousness, and it's like Netflix.
Yeah.
But if you want to educate yourself, nothing in there is just for show. It's called GAIA. It's a subscription, and that's where I found Huberman. That's where I found Joe Dispenza. All these talks, all these things. It's like Netflix, but everyone is accustomed to like. Oh. It's just it's so much information out there on this thing. GAI called. I'm not sponsored by them, but I always tell people to go there and learn about your brain.
I'm going to have a look at that.
Yeah, it's actually that's right up your alley. You would find so much things in it that like. You go into a rabbit hole, but there's a beautiful hole.
Yeah, I think when you reach an age, I don't know if it's because you've just sort of accumulated so much stuff in your unconscious, but soon there comes an appetite where you're watching crap that you were watching 5 years ago, and it's just boring. It
just becomes distasteful. You start your brain starts feeling like it's getting fat. It just feels like your brain. You want to put you in a diet. It really eats away your neurons. Like, these shows like Married at First Sight and Farmer Wants a Wife. I think that's designed to keep you stupid, because it's like there's a time and a place for entertainment. Don't get me wrong, because I'm an entertainer myself, so it's very hypocritical for me to say that. But you gotta be have a balance.
That's just something else. That's a whole another show to discuss.
It's this entertainment industry has a lot of F-wits that are running it.
But why are people consuming it is my interest. We look at the what, but I'm always looking at the why.
So they can do things to keep. The dumber they can keep you, the more they can get away with. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. That's what things are invented to keep. They pay a lot of people to do dumb stuff, like influencers. Influencers are nothing but the cool kids in class. It's just stupid.
Even that show though, I picked. And I've seen many examples of it, but I picked one out in particular in the season before last, and it was a scene where there was a female contestant literally chasing her husband Tom, going, "Tom, I'm going to punch your effing head in, your effing whatever." This went to air, and I posted it and said, "You reverse the genders on that. That would never." Oh,
there's a huge there's a huge double standard. It happens in the media a lot with female newscasters. They'll like sexualize this guy, and it's okay, and then if that was reversed, it's not cool. I see it happen all the time.
But we buy it and we accept it.
Sexualize. You can sexualize men, but if we do the same thing in reverse, then there's a huge problem. And to be fair, just keep shit real. The people, there's a lot of women out there who don't mind, like being looked at, and they don't care. But it's always the ones who aren't that palatable for the eyes have a problem with it. They're the ones who are like, shit. I probably shouldn't have said that. Well. Look, there's some people out there who aren't that attractive, and they're the ones who are making a big deal about, sexualizing women, this and that. Like, no one's sexualizing you, so you can relax. But there's when it's reversed, there's no problem. We're just expected to deal with that because we're men. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like it's a double standard. But to be honest, I don't think there's a man that cares if he's being sexualized by a woman, because we don't give a shit. But
yeah, I mean, you just have to go down the shops today, and they're selling, calendars with firemen with no tops on, and that's all right.
that's fine. But then if it's reversed, and it's like you're a pervert, and it's just like it's like we've made something that's so natural and loving taboo and disgusting. It's but it's the people who are complaining the most are the ones that are the loudest ones, and it's a silent majority and a loud minority going on. So it's a double standard. I tend to stay out of that shit because as a black man, I got other problems to worry about.
Oh, we didn't even get there today on all that, all that stuff.
There's a certain like type of fight that I feel like it's not worth my time because I have a real fight on my hands. That's constant. To be black is to fight like consistently in every aspect. Like in this industry that I'm in comedy, it's always a fight. It's always a fight because like think about it like this. In Australia, you can't name me 2 famous African comedians, but you can name me 5 white ones in a heartbeat. That's a huge problem. Yeah. You can't famous on the level of like famous comedian. You can't because this industry doesn't see black acts as acts. They see them as a number for representation.
Well, it sort of, it harkens back to the dawn of racial time and, the black and white minstrels and things like that.
Yep.
And, we've got a client from Ghana at the moment and, he talks about his experience of being a black man here in Melbourne and, he was leaving the gym the other night and a girl, her bag spilt or something, and he went to help her and it was like this reaction of get away from me. And he said, possibly that wasn't because I was black and a guy, but the way I felt was because...
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. I think when that happens, is I jump on the side of the woman reacting how she reacts because you don't know what kind of reject that is. Happens to me all the time. If I'm walking on the street, a girl across the street, I go, good for you. Walk across the street because I could be a horrible person. And if a lot of women did that, then, then they could be safe. I get it. I don't take that offense on me because I'm not the one that's being harmed. My harm comes from emotional. My harm comes from it's passive. Like, it's the stuff that I go through in this industry because I'm black. It can be damaging if you let it get to you, but I don't allow it to get to me. I recognize it for what it is. There's the industry here is the television. I'll tell you straight up, the industry doesn't think black people buy tickets. They think we're poor, so they don't really invest in the black comedians because they feel like black people don't buy tickets because they don't come out to see comedy shows. The truth is, we don't buy tickets because we don't see us. We don't see us on stage. We don't see us on television. So, we don't. But when there's a comment that's black people come out. But the industry goes, they're poor. They're Africans and they're poor. And that's the truth. They can't deny it. But they're the first ones on ABC or whatever they're saying, we're all about diversity. No, they're not. They're about diversity. But when it comes to black people, there's no diversity involved.
Still a long way. In the world of men's health, globally, black men are still so far disadvantaged.
Yeah, we are.
In terms of health. So, dying a lot earlier, more health problems because of lack of recognition and lack of support there.
Yeah, so. Every day is a fight. When I leave the studio, I guarantee you I'll get looked at in ways that I should be. It happens everywhere I go. You just get used to it. You get people who are looking at you and they're analyzing you. And I don't know if because they see my show or if because I look threatening to them. But you just get used to it. Like when I'm with my wife, she sees it, she goes, well, Vicky, that it happens all the time. So, like I was in Aldi one time, and they checked my bag as I was leaving. I was like, is that a thing that you guys do? So I watched, and then they didn't check anybody else's bag. So I'm like, okay, maybe they just that's I was very upset at that. It's happened to me all the time in grocery stores. But I'd watch how I got treated, and I watch to see if someone else got treated the same way. And it doesn't happen. But it's just you get so used to it that you got to pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
I just hate it when it's passive.
Well, I think that's a good note. Well, it's not really a good note to finish on. But I just have to. I have to finish right on the dot. That's all. It's a terrible point to finish on because there is so much more that needs to be said. So hopefully, where can people contact you? Because where is the...
What, my socials?
Hard Knock Knox Comedy School? Are you part of that or
Nah,
no?
I'm just doing I'm doing a workshop and a meet and greet in July for them.
Right. So where can people find you, connect with you?
They can find me online, Ash the Comic One, ASHTHECOMIC Comic One, all one word, on Instagram, and that's the best way to contact me. Like
and
I
so
said,
that's so I can find where your shows are and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah. That's how you found me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I saw you. And
Oh yeah.
you made me join your Instagram. Right?
Yeah. Dude.
Also, if you want to find Ash, just get on any good cruise ship. I reckon you'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be in Carnival next in a couple of days. If you're on Carnival.
Yeah, but it might be PG, so don't bother.
No, 2 of the shows will be PG. The rest will be adults. And I'll be joining in Vanuatu. So not Numia, where it's crazy right now.
Yeah. Well, look, if any of our discussions today have brought up uncomfortable feelings for listeners, because we have touched on suicide, domestic violence, please remember help is there. There's a few options for further support. Lifeline 131114. Suicide callback service is 1300 659 467, and emergency services is 000. I'll be back on Sunday the 16th of June with a ripper of a guest who I can't promise I'll be able to keep within the Australian broadcasting guidelines, much the same as today. Gareth Herndon is the owner of 70-year-old transport and logistics company Norman Carriers. He's not 70. He inherited that from his dad, who inherited that from his dad. So I've had the privilege of supporting the mental health and well-being of everyone in their business for the last 4 years, and have enormous respect and admiration for Gareth. Now, speaking of things that are special, coming up is Paula Hogg rolling out an entire lazy Sunday afternoon of music and banter, bound to get you relaxed. I haven't seen her walk into the studio yet, but for our final special guest song request, Ashley.
Yes.
It's one of my favourite songs.
Yes.
And look, it could be a Kiss song again. He didn't give me he didn't give me many sort of...
I wanted you to surprise me.
Hopefully it fits with your expectations anyway.
Yep.
So the clue is so bad. If you... Because it's in commemoration of my Auntie Betty, who just passed away.
Okay.
If you were to say Auntie Bet with a lisp, and it's a Kiss song.
Auntie Bet.
So take away the auntie and just bet with a lisp. That'd be Beth. Do you know that Kiss song?
Beth's?
Beth is a Kiss song.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't.
It was probably one of their biggest hits in the US in 1980 something, or it could have been 79.
I probably know the song, but I probably don't know the name of it. Yeah.
Ashley,
Well, we're close. Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, enormously. This has been one of my very unexpected pleasures. You've made my job so easy today.
Thank you.
I could have filled in a couple of shows, as with many of my guests, but it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
Thanks for having me.
An honour to share your great stories, but also some of your stories that you may not have shared somewhere else. So what does it feel like being you today?
It feels great. It feels great being me. It feels great. That's the best way I can explain it.
Great.
And grateful, yeah.